Welcome students. Today we will study the uterus. The uterus, it is a childbearing organ in females. It provides a suitable site and environment for implantation of the fertilized ovum and development of the embryo. It is a hollow, thick-walled muscular organ with a narrow lumen in that it is situated obliquely in the lesser pelvis between the urinary bladder and rectum. Its long axis is horizontal if the bladder is empty in erect posture. Superiorly on each side, it communicates with the uterine tubes, also called as the fallopian tubes, and inferiorly, it is communicating with the vagina. Let us see the measurements of the uterus. It is a pyriform in shape and or it is a pear shaped organ. It measures about 7.5 centimeter in length, 5 centimeter in breadth, and it is about 2.5 centimeter thick. It weighs about 30 to 40 grams in weight. Let us study the various parts of the uterus. The uterus, it is divisible into upper expanded part that is called as the body of the uterus and the lower cylindrical part that is the cervix. The junction of these two, it is marked by a circular constriction and that is called as the isthmus. The part of the uterus above the opening of the fallopian tubes, it is called as the fundus. So this is the fundus. The body forms the upper two-third of the organ and the cervix forms the lower one-third portion. So the upper part, it is the body, and this lower part, it is the cervix. The superolateral angle of the body project outwards at the junction of body and fundus, and that is called as the cornu of the uterus. Let us study each and every subdivisions of the uterus along with its relations. First of all, the fundus. So fundus, it is formed by the free upper end of the uterus. The fundus lies above the opening of the uterine tubes. It is a convex like a dome. It is covered with peritoneum and is directed forwards when the bladder is empty. The fertilized oocyte is usually implanted in the posterior wall of the fundus. So this is the fundus of the uterus. Then the uterus, it consists of the anterior surface, also called as the vesical surface of the body. That is, it is actually flat and it is related to the urinary bladder. So in this figure, this is the anterior surface of the uterus which is flat and it is related to the urinary bladder. It is covered with the peritoneum and it forms the posterior and the superior wall of the uterovesical pouch. So this is the uterovesical pouch. The posterior or the intestinal surface, it is convex and is related to the coils of the terminal ileum and the sigmoid colon. So this is the posterior convex surface of the uterus which is seen in the figure, and it is also covered by the peritoneum and forms the anterior wall of a rectouterine pouch. So this is the rectouterine pouch and this is the anterior wall which is formed by the peritoneum covering the posterior or the intestinal surface of the uterus. Each of the lateral border, it is rounded and the convex. So these are the lateral border of the uterus which are rounded and convex. They provides attachment to the broad ligament of the uterus which connect it to the lateral pelvic wall. The uterine tubes opens into the uterus at the upper end of these borders. So here there is the opening of the uterine tube is there which is present at the upper end of the lateral wall. This end of the border gives attachment to the round ligament of uterus also which is present antero-inferior to the tube, and ligament of ovary present posterior-inferior to the tube. The uterine artery, it ascends along the lateral border of uterus between two layers of the broad ligament. Then when we see the lower portion, that is the cervix of the uterus. The cervix is the lower cylindrical part of the uterus. It is less mobile than the body. It is about 2.5 centimeter long and is slightly wider in the middle than at the either ends. The lower part of cervix projects into the anterior wall of vagina, which divides the cervix into two parts, that is the supravaginal portion and the vaginal portion. Okay, that is the supravaginal part of cervix and the vaginal part of the cervix. So let us see the normal position and angulation of the uterus. Normally the long axis of the uterus, it forms, this is the long axis of the uterus, it forms an angle of 90° with the long axis of the vagina. The angle actually it opens forwards. The forward bending of the uterus relative to vagina, it is called as the anteversion. So this angle it represents the angle of the anteversion. The uterus it is also flexed, it is slightly flexed at the level of the internal os of the cervix. So this is the side where the uterus it is slightly flexed. Okay, and this is the internal os of the cervix and it is referred to as the anteflexion, and the angle of anteflexion it is about 125 degrees. Roughly, the long axis of uterus it corresponds to the axis of the pelvic inlet, and the axis of vagina to the axis of the pelvic cavity and and of the pelvic outlet. It is normally deviated to right side also. A slight deviation is there, and it is called as the dextrorotation. Then coming to the cavity of the uterus. The cavity of the uterus it is small in comparison to its size due to its thick muscular wall. It is divided into two parts, that is the cavity of the body and the cavity of the cervix. Let us see the cavity of the body first. So cavity of the body it is triangular in coronal section. When we take a coronal section it is triangular. The apex of the cavity it is continuous below with the cervical canal through the internal os. So this is the internal os through which it is continuous with the cavity of the cervix. The implantation commonly occurs in the upper part of its posterior wall. It is a mere slit in sagittal section because the uterus is compressed anteroposteriorly and its anterior and posterior walls are almost in contact. When we see the cavity of the cervix, it is a spindle shaped canal being broader in the middle and narrow at the ends. It communicates anterosuperiorly with the cavity of the uterus through the internal os. So this is the internal os through which the cervical canal it communicates superiorly with the body of the uterus, and inferiorly it is communicated with the cavity of the vagina through this external os. So this is the external os through which it communicates with the vaginal cavity. In nulliparous women, that is the woman who have not given birth to a baby, the external os it is small and it is circular. So this is the figure showing the small and circular external os in case of nulliparous females, which is in the form of a circular canal. Okay, whereas in multiparous women, that is the women who have given birth to two or more babies, the external os it is large and it is in the form of a slits. So this is the slit like external os which is present in the multiparous woman, and it is a transverse slit and it presents the anterior and the posterior lips. Now about the details of the ligaments of uterus. The ligaments of uterus actually they are divided into two, that is the false ligaments and the true ligaments. Let us see the false ligaments first. The false ligament or the peritoneal folds, these are nothing but the mere peritoneal folds which do not provide any supports to the uterus. They are broad ligaments the anterior ligament and the posterior ligament. Let us see this ligament one by one. First of all, the broad ligament. The right and the left broad ligament. These are the fold of peritoneum which attach the uterus to the lateral pelvic wall. When the bladder is full, the ligament has anterior and posterior surfaces, upper and the lower, medial and lateral borders. The upper border of this broad ligament, it is free. The anterior and the posterior layer of peritoneum forms the ligament become continuous here. The lateral and the inferior border of the ligament attached to the corresponding part of the pelvic wall. The medial border, it is attached to the lateral margin of the uterus. The ovary is attached to the posterior layer of the broad ligament through the meso-ovarium. The ligament of ovary passes from the lower pole of ovary to the lateral wall of uterus. The part of the broad ligament lying between the uterine tube and the ligament of ovary, it is called as the mesosalpinx, while the part below the ligament, it is called as the mesometrium. The part of the broad ligament that stretches from the upper pole of the ovary. So this is the ovary, and the part of broad ligament stretching here from this upper pole, it is called as the suspensory ligament of ovary, which is also called as the infundibulopelvic ligament. Let us see or enumerate the various contents of this broad ligament. It consists of the uterine tubes, then it consists of the round ligament of the uterus, then it consists of the ligament of ovary, the uterine vessels, the ovarian vessels, the uterovaginal and ovarian nerve plexuses, epiphron, paraophron, some of the lymph nodes, lymph vessels, dense connective tissue. Okay. When we see the anterior ligament actually consists of the uterovesical fold of the peritoneum, and this posterior ligament, it consists of the rectovaginal fold of the peritoneum. So this is all about false ligament of the uterus. Now coming to the true ligaments of the uterus, they are also called as the fibromuscular bands or the supports of the uterus. The supports of the uterus, it is divided into two portions, that is the primary supports and the secondary supports. This primary support, again it is divided into two parts, that is the muscular or the active support, and second one is the fibromuscular or the mechanical support. So under the category of this muscular or active support, these are the pelvic diaphragm is there, the perineal body is there, and the distal urethral sphincter mechanism is there. When we see the fibromuscular or the mechanical support, these are the uterine axis, the pubocervical ligaments, the transverse cervical ligament of McEnroth, uterosacral ligament, the round ligament of uterus. The secondary supports, these are the broad ligaments, the vesico-uterine pouch and the folds of peritoneum, and the rectovaginal pouch. So let us see the details of each and every primary supports. First of all, the pelvic diaphragm. So this is the diagram showing the pelvic diaphragm. The pelvic diaphragm that supports the pelvic viscera and resists any rise in the intra-abdominal pressure. The pubococcygeus part. So this is the pubococcygeus part of the pelvic diaphragm. This pubococcygeus part of the levator ani is partly inserted into the perineal body between the vagina and rectum. Some of these fibers also forms the supporting sling and a sphincter for vagina and indirectly for uterus and urinary bladder. The perineal body, it is a fibromuscular node to which 10 muscles are attached. So this is the site, that is the perineal body. To this perineal body, there are 10 muscles that are attached. It acts as an anchor for the pelvic diaphragm and maintains the integrity of the pelvic floor. The next support, that is the distal urethral sphincter mechanism. The urethral sphincter mechanism exists. In addition, there is a compressor urethra and sphincter urethra vaginalis is there. Since these are inserted into vagina, they support the uterus indirectly. Coming to the uterine axis, the anteverted position of the uterus. So here there is the uterus is there, which is the normal position is anteverted and anti-flexed. So this position itself, it prevents the organ from sagging down through the vagina. Any rise in intra-abdominal pressure tend to push the uterus against the bladder and the pubic symphysis, which further accentuate the anteversion. The pubocervical ligament. So this pubocervical ligament, it connects the posterior surface of pubis. So this is the urinary bladder, this is the cervix, and this is the rectum. This is the anterior side. So this pubocervical ligament, it connects the posterior surface of the pubis and it is derived from the endopelvic fascia. It corresponds to the medial and the lateral puboprostatic ligaments in the male. So this is the pubocervical ligament. The next ligament is the transverse cervical ligaments of McEnroe. It is a fan-shaped condensation of the endopelvic fascia on each side of cervix above the levator ani around the uterine vessels. This transverse cervical ligament of McEnroe, they connects the lateral aspect of the cervix to the and the upper vaginal wall to the lateral pelvic wall, and they forms a hammock that supports the uterus. The next ligament is the uterosacral ligament. So this uterosacral ligament, they connect the cervix to the periosteum of the sacrum. These are the pieces of the sacrum. So they are connecting the cervix to the sacrum and enclosed within the recto-uterine fold. This is the uterosacral ligament. They keeps the cervix braced backwards against the forward pull of the round ligaments. So the round ligament of uterus. So this is the round ligament of the uterus, which is shown in the figure. So these are nothing but the two fibromuscular bands are there, and they are 10 to 12 centimeter long. They lies between the two layers of broad ligament antero-inferior to uterine tubes. So each of this ligament, it begins at the lateral angle of the uterus. So here this is the round ligament of the uterus, which is beginning from the lateral angle of uterus. It runs forwards and laterally. It passes through the deep inguinal ring. It traverses the inguinal canal, and finally it merges with the areolar tissues of the labium majus after breaking up into the thin filaments. So this is the round ligament. They keeps the fundus pulled forward and maintains the angle of anteversion against the backward pull of the uterosacral ligament. The arterial supply of the uterus. So the arterial supply of the uterus or uterus, it is supplied chiefly by the two uterine arteries, and it is partly supplied by the ovarian arteries. When we see the uterine artery, so this is the figure showing the uterine artery. So uterine artery, it is a branch of anterior division of the internal iliac artery. The artery, it first runs medially towards the cervix, crossing the ureter. So here it is crossing the ureter near to the cervix above the lateral fornix of vagina 2 centimeter lateral to the cervix. Then it ascends upwards along the sides of the uterus, so with a tortuous course. Finally it runs laterally towards the hilus of the ovary, and here it is ending by anastomosing with the branches from the ovarian artery. So this tortuosity of this uterine artery, it is important one, as it permits the expansion of the uterus during pregnancy without stretching. So this is the uterine artery, which is a major blood supply to the uterus and which is in turn a branch of the internal iliac artery. When we see the venous drainage of the uterus, the veins from the uterus they forms a plexus, and these plexus they drains through the uterine vein, the ovarian, the vaginal vein into the internal iliac veins. The lymphatic drainage of the uterus. The lymphatic drainage of uterus it is clinically important because uterine cancer it spreads through the lymphatics. When we see the lymphatic drainage, it is different from the upper part and it is different for the lower part of the uterus. From the fundus and the upper part of the uterus, the most of the lymphatics they are draining into the pre and para aortic group of the lymph nodes. However, few of the lymphatics from the lateral angles of uterus they drains into superficial inguinal lymph nodes along the round ligament of the uterus. When we see the lymphatics that are draining from the lower part of the uterus, so from here the lymph vessels they drain into the external iliac group of lymph nodes via the broad ligament. Then the lymphatics from the cervix, on each side the lymph vessels drains into the three directions, that is the laterally, posterolaterally and posteriorly. So the laterally the lymph vessels from the cervix. So the laterally the lymph vessels from the cervix they are draining into the external iliac group of lymph nodes and the obturator lymph nodes. Posterolaterally from the cervix the lymph vessels they are draining into the internal iliac group of lymph nodes by passing along the uterine vessels, and posteriorly the lymph vessels that drains into the sacral nodes by passing along the uterosacral ligaments. So this is how the lymph it travels in various directions. The nerve supply of the uterus. The nerve supply it is richly supplied by the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves through the inferior hypogastric and the ovarian plexuses. The sympathetic nerves that are derived from T12 and L1 segment of the spinal cord, and they are responsible for the uterine contraction and vasoconstriction. When we see the parasympathetic nerves, they are derived from S2, S3 and S4 segment of the spinal cord, and they are responsible for the uterine inhibition and vasodilatation. So these effects, that is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic effects, are complicated by the pronounced effect of hormones on the genital tract. Let us study the various clinical aspects in relation to the uterus. First condition is the fibroids. So these are the multiple fibroids present in the uterus. So these are the benign tumors arising from the myometrial cells. They are found in about 1/5 of the women above 35 years of age. They are usually multiple and may undergo the degenerative changes. They undergo atrophy after menopause. Clinically, they present as a abnormal bleeding, that is the hypermenorrhea, and irregular contour of uterus on bimanual palpation. Often they are asymptomatic. The small symptomatic fibroids requires no treatment, but if they are enlarged, then the hysterectomy it is the treatment of choice. So the IUCD, that is the intrauterine contraceptive device. So this is a device that is called as the copper T, which is inserted into the cavity of the uterus. This is the device it is used to prevent the implantation of the fertilized oocyte. Okay, so this is the IUCD, that is the intrauterine contraceptive device. Coming to the rest of the conditions, that is the hysterotomy. The hysterotomy it is the condition which is referred to the opening of the uterus. So the opening of uterus it is referred as the hysterotomy. Then the hysterectomy it is the complete removal of the uterus is there, and it is termed as the hysterectomy. Okay, it is the complete removal of the uterus. Coming to the next condition, that is the cesarean section. So cesarean section it is a surgical procedure for delivering the baby by cutting open the uterus and and uterus in cases where the vaginal delivery it is not possible. Then the CA cervix. So CA cervix, it is the cervical carcinoma. It is the most common cancer in female, found in about 11% of the female. It is rare before 20 years of age and reaches its peak between the ages of 45 to 55 years of age. The 80% of cervical cancers are squamous cell carcinomas. It spread directly to adjacent structures and metastasizes via the lymphatics to the pelvic lymph nodes and then to the preaortic and the para-aortic group of lymph node. The next condition is the endometriosis. So the endometriosis, it occurs when the bits of the tissue that lines the uterus, that is the endometrium, that grows on the other pelvic organs such as the ovaries or fallopian tubes, and the also on the other organs outside the uterus, the endometrial tissue thickens and pleats just as the normal endometrium does during the menstrual cycle. The next condition is the uterine prolapse. The uterine prolapse is is when the uterus descends towards or into the vagina. It happens when the pelvic floor muscles and ligaments becomes weak and are no longer able to support the uterus. In some cases, the uterus can protrude from the vaginal openings. When we see the division, in case of first degree prolapse, the uterus prolapse in vagina. In second degree prolapse, the uterus comes up to the opening of vagina, and third degree it is called as the procedentia. The uterus, it lies all outside the vagina. So the chocolate cyst, these are non-cancerous fluid filled cysts that typically forms the deep within the ovaries and in the uterus. They get their name from their brown or tar like appearance, looking something like melted chocolates. That's why they are called as the chocolate cyst, and they are usually non-cancerous one. The next condition is the hysterosalpingography. It is also known as uterosalpingography. It is a radiologic procedure to investigate the shape of uterine cavity and the patency of the fallopian tubes. This means it is a special X-ray using dye to look at the womb and the fallopian tubes. So this is all about the clinical aspects of uterus and all the details of the uterus. So thank you so much. So this is all about the lecture of the uterus. Thank you.